Coming up on Need to Know, as senseless acts of violence rip through our community and our country, Rochester area religious leaders come together to discuss the challenges of our time. Also on the show, some states saw a surge of women running for political office this election season, but there's still a significant gender gap. The reasons more women aren't running for office and what can be done to help change that later on the show. And why a well-known name in education circles in Rochester wants kids to rethink what it means to be a hero. Stay with us. Need to Know starts right now. Deadly and destructive hurricanes, shootings in churches, on college campuses, and at music concerts. Acts of terrorism from the streets of New York City to a mosque in Minnesota. Anti-Semitic threats on Jewish community centers and hate marches at synagogues. And to think, these don't even scratch the surface of the tragic incidents that continue to shake our nation. At a time when many in our community and our country feel helpless and hopeless, Rochester area religious leaders are coming together to discuss the challenges of our time and to offer a sense of hope at a moment when some say it's needed most. Joining me at the desk tonight is the Reverend Marvin McMickle, president of Colgate-Rochester Crozier Divinity School, Sarir Fazli, president of the Islamic Center of Rochester, and Rabbi Peter Stein, senior rabbi of Temple Brit Kodesh. And welcome back to all of you. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So when senseless acts of violence strike, as we see so often in the news today, how do you process these horrific acts, and how do you share a message, bring hope, discuss them with your students, members of your respective houses of worship, and the community? And I'll give this to you first, Marvin.
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is just give folk the resolve to keep living, to not give in, to not be frightened, to not be terrorized. I think in a sense, that's what persons are hoping to do, is to drive you out of your norm, to make you feel uncertain about your daily life. And so the idea that in a place like New York or Las Vegas or any place else where these events take place, that folks just decide the next day I'm going to go on with my life. I'm not going to give in to fear and terror. Now, of course, it would help if we could find a way to rein in the means by which so much of this violence occurs. A madman with a knife is altogether different than a madman with an automatic rifle and a book that holds 100 bullets. So this is a pretty complicated question.
Yeah.
I think, Marvin, I think you've given us a very good introduction, which is we have to begin a response with comfort, with creating a sense of resilience, that we can go on, we can wake up in the morning and do our piece. But I think you began with the word senseless, and I think that to me is what's really critical, is that our response has to really be twofold. One is offering comfort and consolation and praying for peace, if that's our tradition. But we can't just rest on that. We have to respond by making changes in the world around us. And when we're talking about human-made violence, it's very different than responding to a hurricane or some other natural event.
We try to give our community a sense of an idea that this is something that we have to trust in the system. We have to trust the process. Whatever is happening outside, we do not believe that it has any religious motivation. We find, in fact, that it is mostly misguided and ill-educated people that are engaging in these acts of violence. We try to instill in our communities that they're part of a broader community. It's not about what religion we follow or a focus on that. It's more about our neighbors, getting the community active, getting them involved in speaking out against these things, and at a large scale. We try not to be insular, and we want to make sure that our communities understand, not just the faith communities, but outside, that everybody is being affected by this. It's not just the Muslims, the Jews, whoever. This is something that is affecting us because people are watching us and seeing the response that we're going to give, almost like we're being incited to do things or say things that are otherwise inappropriate. We will not do that. And the best thing that comes out of these things is the ability for us to get together and educate not just ourselves, but everybody else as to where we stand and how we stand and how we are standing together.
To slightly follow up with that, when we hear about people misusing religious text, whether it be from the Bible or the Quran, and they, in relation to anti-Semitism, terrorist acts, and that kind of a thing, how then, when that happens, how then do you feel as though it's necessary to respond?
So I think that that's also one of the critical responsibilities that we have as religious leaders, which is when someone makes an act of violence in the name of whichever religion, right, we have to demonstrate that that is not what the religion is about. Right. That is not what the religious texts of our traditions have to say. And that comes, I think, from two places. One is teaching and modeling from our own faith tradition, but the other is also demonstrating friendship and allyship with people from other religious traditions. That in Rochester, we're blessed to have these relationships between our religious traditions so that we are able to say, if an act comes in the name of whichever tradition, we can step in and say, these are our friends, we know these people, we know their traditions, and that's not what their religion is about any more than it's what our own religion is about.
So as a case in point, while I'm the president of Colgate Divinity School, Peter Stein teaches for us in the area of Jewish studies. We also have persons from the Muslim faith who teach on our faculty. So the idea that we are modeling a kind of a world community of religious life for our students, for our faculty, for our staff, and I hope for the broader community. But there's a wonderful verse in Acts 17. And every time I hear somebody who wants to isolate and sort of minimize a particular group, there's this verse from the Apostle Paul, "From one blood God made all nations to dwell together on the face of the earth." And if we could just remind ourselves that all of us are in the end of the same family of God, and not let anybody try to push us apart into rivaling groups, one against the other.
I'm curious, I see you're starting to say something, I don't know if this will tie in, but do you find yourselves emerging as news breaks, as things happen, whether incidents of violence and so on, do you find your roles, all of you are in leadership positions, kind of emerging more in the political realm? Because people do seek you for advice and for counsel. Do you find that that is happening more? Are you aware of that happening more?
I think my community, I'm going to say especially, if there is an act of violence perpetrated by a Muslim, it becomes Islamic or Muslim terrorism. When there are acts of violence being perpetrated ostensibly or allegedly in the name of some other religious background, you don't hear that religious name being used as the adjective. And what it does is it does mark us, it scars us a little bit, so that when you talk now about the political side of things, people in our community feel the need to be much more political. They're trying to get their message across, and they feel that if the narrative is being spun against us in so many different ways, we need to be able then to start writing the narrative. And if that means that we have to take to the streets, get people elected, canvass, show our strength, make people hear our voice, in a way, that's what's happening. And it's coming from communities that until now had been relatively silent in the whole political process. They are immigrants. They are not used to being able to exercise their franchise. It was always exercised upon them. And now they're seeing that the way forward, as I said earlier, in trusting the system is using what's available to them and maximizing their numbers.
The Reverend Myra Brown of Spiritus Christi here in Rochester, she wanted to join us today, but she had a scheduling conflict. However, she did share these words for this program. "I believe that we are in a time where the challenges of male aggression, gun violence, racism, racial tension, poverty, and unrestrained pocketed moral outrage appears to be calling us as a nation and society to act more boldly and relentlessly for justice and peace." How would you respond to that? And if you agree, how do we make it happen?
So I love what she had to say. And while I recognize that all of this is inherently political, I view it really more as civic engagement as religious leaders. And recognizing that with so much of the violence that we've witnessed, that it is being done in a racist way, in an anti-Muslim way, in an anti-immigrant way. And so the behavior that I hope to model as a religious leader is to say that my religious tradition and my leadership roles as a rabbi in the community is to say that we speak for immigrants, we speak for those of different racial identities. We build friendship and closeness between the Muslim community and the Jewish community, so that we can combat those terrible adjectives, as Sarir said, those adjectives that are used so quickly, but really don't make sense in my mind.
Myra's comment reminds me, pardon me for the use of this Greek word, parrhesia, which translates into bold speech. And that what I think we need are persons of moral conviction who are prepared to engage in bold speech. That's the same word that was used concerning Socrates. He said the reason the people of Athens were against him was because he was prepared to speak boldly about what he believed to be true. And I think what we're all saying is, to the extent that we are prepared to speak boldly about the things that we know to be true, believe to be true, and against the things that we believe to be false and ungodly, Myra's point, I think, is exactly that. Somebody has to stand up, speak out boldly, and it also comes with a sense of, without a great deal of concern about the consequences to yourself for what you have just said. If you're afraid to speak, you'll always hedge your bet.
In the last 2 years, there have been some pretty targeted, focused issues or attacks on the Muslim community internationally as well as domestically across the country, and even in Rochester. Without even having to ask, the interfaith community sprang up as a shield to say, not with this group. Before the Muslims had a chance to speak, the interfaith community took 2 steps forward and said, we got this. Her words, ironically, I think were put into action at least a year ago, if not a little longer, at the time of the election. We see very bold statements coming from our friends, our neighbors, our well-wishers. We, in turn, will make bold statements in support of simply what's right. When people were desecrating Jewish cemeteries across the country, I took a step. I called a couple of my friends in the press. They said, how does this affect you? I said, it most certainly affects me. I said, these are our friends, and this isn't even something about, you know, an act of violence. I said, this is the basic of the base, and somebody has not learned from a very early age how to be a normal, regular, nice human being. We're not going to allow this. And we took the step.
Well, unfortunately, we have to close for now. Time goes by way too quickly. But this was certainly a much needed and appreciated conversation. So thank you to all of you for your time and for weighing in on this discussion. Another election season has come and gone. While national media outlets report that a, quote, surge of women ran for office in major races since last year's presidential election, the gender gap in politics remains. And so we have to ask, where are the women? That question was the title of an article written and researched by WXXI's Tiana Mannon for City Newspaper. It's a question surrounded by a number of issues, some of which my guests will address tonight. Joining me at the desk is Dina Levy, Associate Professor of Political Science and International Studies at the College at Brockport. Ruth Scott, the first president of the Rochester City Council and the first African-American woman elected to the City Council. And WXXI reporter Tiana Mannon. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So Tiana, from your article covering specifically a focus on Monroe County elected officials and political candidates to the national news outlets looking at more of the political landscape as a whole when it comes to women running for office, I have seen articles and questions raised more now than it seems ever before about this question that you posed, where are the women? And Dina, I'm pointing to you because I want to ask you about this first. Why are we hearing more about these questions? Why are people people asking about this more?
Well, I suspect it has a lot to do with Hillary Clinton's campaign and the fact that we came very close to seeing a woman become president, and we still haven't. And so I think that's where it's at. But political scientists have been asking these questions for quite a while. It's not, brand new to us, but we still don't have all the answers, and we still keep wondering, where are the women and why aren't more running for office?
Well, Ruth, I'm going to go to you next because I want to hear a little bit about your backstory and what propelled you to first run. But first I want to go to, there was a New York Times article featuring an interview with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and the headline, "The problem for women is not winning, it's deciding to run."
Yes,
and Gillibrand has talked about as a child, she wanted to run, but it wasn't until decades later when she said, these are her words, "I had the self-confidence to run." So I ask you, what was it that made you say, you're a trailblazer, made you say, I'm going to do this?
Well, I felt like I was hijacked, to tell you the truth.
Really?
I wasn't particularly interested in running. I was interested in being a policymaker someplace, but not necessarily at the political level. And Midge Costanza was the only woman on the Rochester City Council. She was tapped by Carter to become a part of his administration. And so the women in my neighborhood said, you take Midge's place. And I said, well, I don't know if I want to do that. And they kept begging me and begging me. Finally they said, guess what? Why don't you just go through the system to see if it's honest? I couldn't resist that challenge. And so I said, okay. And so I went through it not expecting to be chosen.
Really?
And yeah, it was an interesting and challenging event.
But any hesitation along the way in the process?
Along the way in the process, there was hesitation because my concern was I really was committed to being a good mother and a good wife. And so one of the things that was helpful for me is that my husband and I decided we'd go away by ourselves one whole day and facilitate each other in getting out on the table. What are your fears? What are your concerns? What, how would this operate in terms of the way our lives are organized at this time? And that really helped because it helped me make some decisions about. For instance, I told people, you can call me at any time unless I'm having prayers with my children, reading stories, or at dinner.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll hold that because I want to get back to that.
Okay.
So Tiana, the Times article that I referenced, American University did a study and they found that when women run for political office, they are just as likely as men to be elected. The main reason they are so underrepresented is that they don't run in the first place. Yeah. So you talked to elected officials throughout Monroe County when you essentially said to them, where are the women in politics? What did they say to you?
I think Ruth brought up the perfect point. She said, I wanted to be a good mother and a good wife, and it's that division of labor. We have to take on so much. Already we're at work 8 hours a day, but when we go home, we have different responsibilities than men. Whether it's putting dinner on the table, it's, putting the kids to bed. And over the years, men have definitely stepped up a lot, but overwhelmingly, a lot of women still feel most of the burden falls on them.
Well, many men insist that it falls on them.
Yeah, like the woman who ran. Why do we in our society seem to fall into these roles?
Because we're just still conditioned by the attitudes of a lot of men, which wasn't true with my husband, thank goodness, who say, well, your place is, we used to have this saying early in the 70s about a woman's place is in the House and in the Senate.
That's my mom had a T-shirt that said that.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Kirsten Gillibrand is the anomaly, though, that to say that she was always interested in running for office is so atypical for women because women are less frequently tapped to run for office. They don't talk about it in the household. Parents don't. It makes a huge difference if your mom or your dad will say to you, hey, someday you should think about running for office. And that doesn't happen as much for girls as it does for boys. So Kirsten Gillibrand is the absolute anomaly for saying that she was always interested. That's really unique. And you add that, plus, and even with that, she still said she had to get that self-confidence, and that's a huge factor too. Women are less likely to think that they're qualified because they have an ideal in mind what you should be to be able to run for office, where the men are much more likely to say, hey, of course I can do it.
So that brings up a very good point. So what are there key moments throughout one's life, childhood, high school years, college, etc., where those are pivotal moments where someone's saying, like you mentioned, parents encouraging their children to run for office? Are there moments when that are pivotal to kind of tap into to kind of further propel a person down that particular path?
College seems to be an important time because there's some relatively recent research that's showing that up through high school, those differences aren't quite as large, even though still parents aren't talking about it, friends aren't saying to girls, you should think about running. But the differences really start to grow in college. So men in college are more likely to join the Young Republicans or Young Democrats group. Think about running for their college offices and things like that. So that seems to be, I think, a moment to say to women in college, hey, have you ever thought about joining, you know, a political group? Have you ever thought about running? I think that's important then.
Well, I also think having experiences even in high school where you are considered, well, you know, why don't you be president, or why don't you be vice president, or whatever the role is, and running for those offices at that, because that's what I did. I was always into something. I was in every club I could get into, because at the time when I was going to high school, not many African American women or men were involved in the extracurricular activities. And I did all of them, because my father had this kind of attitude, you can do anything you want to do if you're willing to work for it. So
I'd say too, I think even going further back, we're talking about a lot of political instances, but this goes across industries. And I think telling women, or especially young girls when they're young, you know, you have a voice, and empowering that voice, listening to that voice. I think even if they don't become a politician, you know, maybe they're more likely to become an editor in a newsroom, a different CEO, something like that. So strengthening that voice.
No, I agree. My dad used to say to me, I want you to run for president. I said, never, but I want to do journalism. So I see, and that worked for me, absolutely. You were going to jump in, Dina.
Well, I was going to say that I think also that women need to be told that they can do this, but they do find other avenues. And so women are more likely to think that they can make a difference through volunteering work and stuff. So I think then what becomes important is for parties and recruiters to find the women where they're at. They're in the PTAs, they're in the school boards, they're overwhelmingly in the school boards. And so if you're trying to recruit, you have to go where they are. And so it's not that women aren't engaged or aren't active. They vote at higher rates than men do.
Right, absolutely.
So they are. It's just that leap to the office, to you know, publicly elected office, is one that they haven't taken as much as men have.
Well, you know, J. Newton Smalls has this book called The Broad Influence, and she talks about the fact that it's really important for there to be a critical mass. And when that critical mass comes about, like 20% of an organization, a board, a political situation, things change. The whole attitude about how policy gets made and developed, and whom it's going to help, those things happen because women are at the table. They don't really happen with men.
Tiana, when you talk to elected officials here locally, what did they say needs to be done to encourage more women to run? Were there practical steps, action steps? And I'm talking in particular for those watching right now who may say, you know what, I've had that feeling, that nudge. How do I go about doing it? Did you hear anything from anyone?
I think the best advice I heard was just to get involved. And we were saying, you know, women do get involved at these other levels. Getting that experience under your belt of how to work in a team, how to delegate different things, how to, you know, really present yourself and your ideas and get those passed. But at the same time, I thought it was really cool how a couple other legislators said we're kind of ahead. You know, we have great representation in the city. The county is pretty good. So I think, if anything, kind of continuing along what we have been doing and really making sure that we're tapping into the women who are there, because we clearly have a great pool of politicians.
All right, well, we are out of time, but a huge thank you to my guests for sharing your insight and experiences for us. And for Republican women interested in running for political office, the group Winning for Women is launching soon to serve as a resource. And the group Emily's List provides training and support for Democratic women candidates. So for more information, check out the websites on your screen. Who are your heroes and what do they do? Do they ever think about me or think about you? And so begins a series of contemplative questions in a children's book intended to help young people reimagine the concept of a hero. It's aptly titled Heroes, and it's written by Rochester City School Board President Van White, who explains real heroes aren't the ones donning flashy capes. Take a look.
Good morning, everybody. About 4 years ago, I came here and read a poem. I was thinking about my dad, who passed away about 30 years ago, and I read a poem about heroes because I wanted young people to know that heroes don't wear capes. They can't fly over buildings in a single bound. They are people that day in and day out care for you, love you, support you. And that's the mothers, the fathers, the aunts, and uncles. And I wanted to emphasize that point to children. I decided to make that poem a book. And here it is today. It's called Heroes. Who are your heroes? And what do they do
Police are my heroes because they help a lot around the community and they arrest people who are bad. And firefighters too. They take out fires, and firefighters and policemen and ambulance. Because once my mother had an asthma attack and they helped her a lot.
My heroes would have to be my mother and father. They really look out for me, they do everything for me, and they're always able to save the day when I need saving.
My heroes is my sister and my brother-in-law. My sister is Brittany. She treats me nicely and she, I love her and she has respect to everyone and elders, and that's how she's my hero.
I think we're told through TV and movies what a hero is. But ironically, if we turned away from the television set, and it's hard to get kids to do that nowadays, we would see that the hero is sitting in the armchair, the hero is in the kitchen, the hero is doing the laundry, and that's mom or dad, aunt, your uncle, your godmother. They're all around us. Heroes will always take the time to show you that they care.
I think there's no wrong with looking up to a celebrity because, I mean, they chase their dreams, they are somewhere, but also you have to look around in your community and the people that really are around you every single day that sometimes you might not see that they're making an impact in your life, but they really are, whether they say I love you or whether they protect you in some kind of way. Sometimes
heroes, for one, have to be selfless. I mean, you helping others, you can't be selfish and care about yourself, loving and always wanting to do the right thing.
The list of people who would not be heroes are criminals, bad people, people with guns and knives around them, and people who hide a lot of stuff and bad stuff that they do.
The word hero and parent just don't connect. And the goal of this book is to make those words connect more often, including people in our community like police officers who try to do the right thing, firemen, librarians, teachers, doctors, plumbers, the young man who picks up a piece of garbage, that's a hero. The young person who says, hey, don't mistreat my friend, don't mistreat this young person. Those are all heroes. We all have the capacity. The book tries to teach us that we all have the capacity to be heroes, whether we have capes or not.
To learn more about the Heroes mission or where to buy your own copy, go to listofheroes.com. And that wraps up this edition of Need to Know, Rochester's News Magazine. I'm your host, Helene Bianduti-Hofer. Thank you for joining me tonight, throughout the weekend, and online at WXXInews.org. I'll see you next week.